time to dye. Wahahaha. Hi everyone, I'm about to dye these two items purple and I thought I'd show you the process just to show you how easy it is. So I've got this top here with the wings on. I've had it for, God, well over a decade and I really like it, but it's getting a bit old and a bit faded, and I thought I'd over dye it purple so the wings will go kind of a bright purple hopefully, and then the rest of it will go like a kind of black, nearly purple, nearly black, sort of in betweeny sort of colour. And then there's these jeans which I bought the other day from the charity shop. You saw that in my charity shop vlog, and I like them. They're a good colour, but I kind of want them to be a bit darker, so I'm going to dye them a bit darker too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this packet of dye called iDye, but there are plenty of other types of dye available. There's things like Dylon, and I think RIT is an American company. But anyway, these are nice and easy to use. You just bung it in a washing machine, bung the clothes in on top, and then run the wash cycle and bob's your uncle. But the first thing you need to do is to make sure that your items are clean, especially if they're brand new, because they might have some sort of coating on them or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a regular wash with these. I've got a bunch of other clothes in there as well, excuse my filthy washing machine. And it's really important when you run this wash that you don't put any fabric softener or anything like that in, because that's just going to add another coating to the items and they're not going to take the dye so well. Now when I wash my clothes I actually use a thing called soap nuts, which are these little seeds basically from a tree, and they give off saponin when they're immersed in water from sort of 40 degrees up. And that's a nice easy way to wash your clothes without fading them or anything like that, and it's super cheap and it works. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a little bit of extra oomph to the wash just to make sure that I've washed out any grease or anything. So I'm just using washing up liquid, plain old washing up liquid. That will do the job absolutely fine. So I'm just going to run a regular 40-degree wash, and I'm going to run it on an intensive wash, so that gives it a little bit longer, and just make sure that the items are really squeaky clean. And then we're going to run the dye wash. So I'll turn this on and we'll leave the machine to it. See you very soon. So the clothes are out of the wash, they're all nice and wet and ready to go. We've got the dye here and also a couple of non-iodized salt, or as we call it in Britain, salt. The packet of dye is actually really handy. It's this kind of plasticky thing which dissolves, which is really useful. So you just bung that in the wash and the salt, and then basically just wash the clothes. The instructions online do actually say to dissolve these two in some hot water, but the first thing that my washing machine does when I switch it on is to drain itself. So I'm not going to do that. I am literally just going to put this packet and the salt into the machine, and then the items, and then I'm going to stick it on a wash. Bung those in there, salt into the machine, dye packet on top, take the clothes, bung them in there too. This can actually dye up to, I think it was 2 to 3 pounds worth of fabric, something like that, so quite a lot of fabric, but these are the only two things that I want to dye purple today, so that's it. It does say to use the hottest possible cycle. I'm going to use my 60-degree eco cycle. So it's pretty hot and it also goes on for quite a long time. Basically, the longer you leave it in the machine with the wash on, the better it is, because obviously it's in the dye for longer. The eco setting on my machine means that it uses fewer changes of water, so that's always a good thing. So it's just going to go in there for another 2.5 hours. I'm going to get it started, and then hopefully I'll have some nice purple clothes by the end of it. As you can hear, there goes the drainer, so I wouldn't ever want to dilute the stuff first in water before I put it in, because otherwise it would just suck it all out and then, you know, it would just be a complete waste of time. So I'm just going to leave that and we're going to see what happens at the end. Okay, so the wash cycle has finished. Let's see what we've got. Let's have a look at my lovely new dark purple clothes. Oh my god, that looks amazing. You often find this with quite a lot of clothes, that the stitching will be done with a synthetic fabric, which is why you get the stitching being a different colour to the rest of the item, but that's absolutely fine. If I wanted to change that, I could use the iDye Poly. They've actually got a dye for synthetic fabrics as well, but I quite like that. I quite like the difference of the colours, so that's cool. I like that. Let's have a look at my Wings t-shirt. It does seem to be a bit darker. And oh, that's really interesting. See that, now this sort of thing happens, let me just put the camera down, hold on. So this sort of thing sometimes happens when you dye an item. You don't really know what you're going to get. And with this I've got super dark purplish black on the rest of the fabric, which is really cool. But the wings haven't gone as purple as I expected them to, so it looks like the kind of the undercolour has caused a difference in the colour to the way that I was expecting it to go, which is fine. I think that's quite cool actually. It's come up really cool. Occasionally you won't get what you expect, you'll get something a little bit different, but doesn't mean that it's not cool. So what I need to do now is wash these items again, and it says to wash them with a mild detergent, so what I'm going to do is just use my soap nuts, nice bag of soap nuts there, bung them in there, and put it on a 40-degree wash, and then once they're done I can take them out and dry them. Okay, so here we have the results of the dyeing. This is the top. It's gone kind of a very dark purple, kind of mostly black. It looks black in the camera, I'm sure, but when I'm looking down at it I can kind of see it's got this sort of purple sheen to it, and then on the back it's got the wings. They've got this kind of vintage purple, which I quite like actually. I'm quite pleased with that, I have to say. And then the jeans have gone an absolutely glorious shade of purple. I'll show you these here. And I thought I'd also show you my bargain of the century. I went charity shopping again with my mum in Cambridge yesterday, and we went in one of the charity shops and we had a pair of new Rockooners. Yeah. And they were £20. And they're my size. So of course I had to have them. So bargain of the century, charity shop, New Rocks. Quite pleased with those, I have to say. Say hello, Ziggy. Ziggy. Say hello. Hi. Okay, so the dye has finally arrived for me to do this jacket. It's the cream velvet one that I bought. Ziggy wants feeding. It's the cream velvet one that I bought when I went out charity shopping with my mum and my nana the last time we were all out together. And I've decided I'm going to dye it a kind of a dark teal, so I bought a packet each of blue and green dye. I'm literally just going to bung them both into the machine with the jacket and kind of cross my fingers and hope for the best. But I'm hoping that that's going to come out a really nice colour. So the first thing I want to do actually is to remove this lace, and I'm actually not going to dye this lace because I'm going to use something else as the lacing on the back instead. So let's just take that off. So that's been removed there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash the jacket just to make sure that there's no fabric conditioner or any sort of treatment or anything like that on it that might kind of stop the dye from holding. And I'm going to wash it in my trusty machine like I did before, just bung it in there. I've got a couple of other things. I only own like 3 things that are pale coloured, so this is my my one white wash of the year basically. So that's all going to go in there. So I'm going to bung some washing up liquid in here, basically because it's really good for just removing all grease stuff and that kind of thing, and anything that might be on the jacket that doesn't want to be on there. Basically the soap nuts that I normally use, I can't find the bag right now, so I'm going to do that instead. We're going to put this on a 40-degree wash, close the door, and I'm going to give it an intensive wash as well, just to make sure that it's really nice and clean before we go on to doing the next stage. So we'll leave that to do its thing and come back to it when it's washed. So the jacket is out of the wash and it's nice and damp and also clean. I've got the dye packets ready to go. Normally when I dye stuff, I dye it one colour and then I go, oh that's not right, and then I over dye it another colour. So this is actually the first time I'm going to be putting both dye packets into the machine at the same time. It's a bit of an experiment, but anyway, I've already got 2 cups of salt in there. That's 1 cup of salt per dye packet. And then I'm going to put the item of clothing in. There we go. And then I know I did the last lot at 60 degrees, but I'm a little bit nervous of doing that jacket at 60 degrees. Actually, it should be alright. Let's give it a go. We'll give it a go. We're going to do it at 60 degrees on the Eco Wash, which uses fewer changes of water. So we're just going to get that started now. And keep our fingers crossed that it works. Very green. And it's very foamy. I don't know whether that's because there's some soap left over from when I washed the stuff. But anyway, this is what it looks like in the machine at the moment. I think this jacket's going to come out very green. I don't think it's going to be as blue as I expected it to be. But we'll see what happens. So it's had its dye cycle, it's now back in the machine for a wash cycle. Got some soap nuts in there, I found them. And it's just in a regular 40-degree, ordinary everyday wash. And we're just going to see how it comes out. I had a look at it before I put it back in the machine for the wash, and it is very, very green, but it's absolutely beautiful. So as you can see, this jacket came out this beautiful shade of dark emerald green in the end. I was really surprised actually that the blue didn't take a bit more, but there you go, that's the colour that we've got, and it is rather lovely. Now as you can see, the stitching hasn't taken because it's a synthetic thread. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to throw this in a pot with a skirt of mine that I want to over dye black because it's gone a bit grey. And I'm going to do that in a poly dye, and we'll see actually if that works and if that takes the stitching colour to black. That will be really good. I think I'm going to leave it green apart from that for the time being and wear it green for a while. And then I've got another packet of blue dye, so if I get bored of it being green, I'm going to bung it on another wash, and that'll make it a kind of a darker bluey green. So I think that's a good tip in the future, is if you want to dye something, the combination of colours, dye it one colour first and then dye it the second colour, rather than having both dye packets in the wash, because that doesn't seem to have worked for me. But apart from that, I'm very pleased with it. I think it's gorgeous. So I have two items that I want to do with the poly dye. The first thing is the skirt, and I've tried dyeing this with a regular fabric dye before, just like a normal cotton dye, and it didn't work. So I'm going to try it with poly dye and see what happens. It's grey at the moment. It looks quite dark because it's wet, but it's actually grey. I'm trying to make it blacker. So I'm basically doing an over dye, and then obviously that green jacket as well I'm going to put in there just to see if I can get the threads to go black. So that's in the washing machine at the moment, just getting wet again. So I'm going to do this skirt first, and I'm going to use the iodized poly, and it comes as a pack exactly the same as the other stuff, and then instead of salt you use like a colour intensifier. Now I've never done this before on the stovetop method. I've used the washing machine and the results weren't brilliant, so I'm going to use the stovetop method. So here is my nice new big pot, and apparently you just put the dye packet in there and wait for it to dissolve, and then you put the colour intensifier in there as well. Stir it all around, dissolve it, and then stick the item in that you want to dye. I'm going to dye the items individually one at a time, just so there's enough room in the pot for both of them. So I'm going to do the skirt first, and then I'm going to do the jacket afterwards. So let's get started. So I put the dye packet in there, and I put the colour intensifier in there, and then I'm just stirring it up with the back of a paintbrush. You're not supposed to use any of the utensils that you use in these for cooking after you've used them for dyeing. So I'm using a paintbrush, and I bought this specifically to do the stovetop method. It's quite stinky. So I'm just going to swirl that around a bit more just to make sure it's all dissolved. And then I'm going to take the skirt and put it in the dye bath, like so. And you need to make sure it's well covered so that the dye gets to all the parts of the item. Just give it a good stir around there, and then I'm going to leave it in there. Basically you're supposed to bring it to a rolling boil, which is basically a simmer, and then leave it in there for between half an hour and an hour. So that is in there nicely, so I'm going to leave it to boil away. And because it's a synthetic fabric, it should be absolutely fine. It shouldn't shrink or anything like that. I'm really hoping that my green jacket also doesn't shrink in this heat, but I'm pretty sure that it's already pre-shrunk cotton, so it should be absolutely fine. Anyway, we'll leave that in there, do its thing, and we'll come back to it in a bit. Okay, so this is my skirt. It's come out. It's still steaming, as you can see, but seems to be looking a lot blacker than it was, so that's good news. What I'll do in a minute is I'll put it in the machine and give it a wash. I've got the green jacket still in the machine, and I'm just heating up a bit more water to add to the dye bath, and now we're putting the green jacket into the dye bath, so that will be my next task. So the jacket is in there, and this is the terrifying bit, because of course the jacket has gone black, and I start to think, oh my god, is it going to stay black, and you know, have I just ruined that lovely green? But I have dyed stuff before that's been a mixture of fabrics, and the only colour that's taken has been the one that's appropriate to that particular part of the fabric. So you've seen my purple skirt, for instance, which has that kind of lilac-y underlayer, which was dyed with regular fabric dye, and the underlayer was made of a combination of cotton and polyester, and it was only the cotton that took the dye. So I'm hoping that the similar thing is going to happen with this. It's certainly what the instructions say anyway. It says that, you know, if you've got something that's made of two different types of fabric, that you want to be the same colour on both, and you put in a dye packet of each type, and then you do it on the stovetop sort of thing. So anyway, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm just a little bit panicky. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the other skirt into the washing machine. I'm going to leave this jacket in. I'm only going to leave it in for half an hour this time. I'm not going to leave it in for the full hour like I did with the skirt. I'm just going to put the lid on to make sure the heat stays in. Leave that on for half an hour and then I'll wash both together, and hopefully I'll come out with a green jacket that has black stitching, a nice black skirt. But we'll see what happens. So something completely unexpected happened. I had the lid on the thing and it obviously got a bit too hot and started boiling over, and so it has boiled over all over my cooker and part of my preparation surface, which is a bit annoying. It's also gone a little bit on the floor too, so what I'm going to have to do is get some bleach and obviously bleach all of that. It's coming off the cooker okay, not so much off the knobs, but it's coming off the cooker itself alright, but it's not really coming off here. That's as best as I've managed to do. So never mind, that's something worth bearing in mind, is if you put the lid on, it was fine with the skirt, but with the jacket, yeah, it's just bubbled over basically. So anyway, it's pretty much time, so I'm going to turn that off and then get the jacket into the bowl with the skirt and then get both into the machine and see what happens. So the results of the jacket are in. It's green. When it came out of the machine, certainly after it had been in the pot for a while, it was kind of crispy and I was worried that the velvet would be kind of stiff and stuff, but I've worn it for a couple of days and it's gone soft again, so that's quite nice. So it's gone green. I've actually ordered some rose-shaped pewter buttons, which I'm going to be putting on here, although there are 25 of them, so it's going to take me forever to stitch them on, but never mind, it's a nice little project to do while I'm sitting in front of the telly. When it went into the poly dye bath, because it wasn't in there for very long and it was the second dye, and obviously I put a bit of extra water in, the stitching has gone kind of grey rather than black, but I actually quite like that. It merges quite well in with the green, so I'm pleased with that and I'm going to keep it like that. Overall I'm very pleased with the jacket. I kind of wish it was a bit more blue, but that's fine because like I said, I can wear it green for a while, and then when I've really had enough and I've decided I don't want it to be green anymore, then I can put it back in the machine with another packet of blue dye and that should actually go blue. So the other thing is this skirt, and as you can see, despite the fact it was in the poly bath for an hour and I did everything according to the instructions, it's still dark grey. It's not gone black. I can't work out whether it's a bit darker. I think maybe it's a little bit darker than it was, but it didn't really take the dye. So I've tried it in synthetic dye, that poly dye, I've tried it in the natural fabrics dye, hasn't worked. The skirt is still grey. So if anybody has any idea on how to make this skirt black again, just let me know. Because I'm stumped. I've tried everything as far as I'm concerned, it didn't work. So but never mind, it's still, you know, it's still a lovely skirt and I'm still quite pleased with it. It's quite nice with leggings on underneath, so that's all good. Yes, overall I am very, very pleased. So I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know which was your favourite bit. If you've got any questions about dyeing clothes or you've got any ideas about the skirt, then let me know down below. I'd be really interested to read what you think. And I'll see you guys all again very soon. Bye!